Dr. Jazz.
I know you lived in Paris before, but how come this decision to come to Europe, and what did this bring to you actually? Like,
the decision to go to Europe was, I think it was something that I maybe toyed with for a while. I had thought about for a while. I'd always come over since I was, I first started coming over to Europe to play maybe when I was right in the beginning of the time I was in New York. Maybe the first time I came over was 93 or something like that.
wow, with whom was that? With Victor Lewis or no?
Victor Lewis was one of the early gigs. I think the very first time I came over to play in Europe was with Mercedes Rossy, which is Jorge's Rossy's sister. Oh, yeah. She passed away from cancer in 97 or something like that, which was a shock. But yeah, I think that was one of the first gigs that I did over in Europe. She had some gigs in Spain, and I think it was with Hal Crook, who used to teach at Berkeley.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think then Victor Lewis was maybe one of the second gigs that I came over to play in Europe. I just found I was playing in Ancona, and one of our gigs was Victor was in Ancona.
Yeah.
And this guy came to the concert, and he had a book. He's a photographer, yeah. And he goes to and a jazz fan, and he goes to the concerts, and he takes so many pictures, and he's a good photographer. I mean, they were nice pictures, and he fills an entire book per gig. It was one gig, and he had a book
seriously
full of I don't know how many photographs there were, maybe over 100. But
wow.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see, because I don't have any photos of that.
Sure, yeah, I know.
So it was nice to see the memories. It was like, wow, so long ago. But yeah, it's coming over to Europe is a fortunate thing, I think, for someone who's North American. Growing up in Canada and living in the United States, I feel that it's a nice cultural opportunity, a cultural to see different places and that, and so I enjoyed being able to I think I started coming over to Spain a lot in the beginning.
Yeah,
I kind of started with Spain. I thought I was maybe going to live there one day.
That's with Jordi, like the Fresh Sound connection, kind of, or no? That was not connected, or
it was just people that I knew. Jorge Rossy would invite, brought me over there, and I went with him a couple of times, and sort of had some connections, and would sometimes play over there with some bands. Also, sometimes a drummer named Mark Muralta. Yeah, it was one of the first points where I sort of played more regularly, a little more regularly. And culturally, it's a fun, exciting place. I fell in love with Barcelona.
Yeah, sure.
But in terms of where at a certain point I was thinking about toying with the idea of well, let me see what it feels like to live over in somewhere in Europe. At the time, I was playing with these French guys because I had made an album with them.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that later. Yeah, I love that one, man. Beautiful record.
Tony Tixier.
Yep.
Florent Nice, Gauthier Garrigue, great musicians. That was an idea that was proposed to me by a kind of a jazz fan, and sort of it was his idea to organize some concerts. He's not necessarily normally a professional promoter. He has another job, but he loves jazz a lot. His name is Olivier Says easy. I'm
Says,
not exactly
yeah.
sure the says. I would say says.
Says, yeah.
I would say says. He organized this tour, and it was with Tony, yeah, those guys, and we made a record. And so then I was toying with the idea. I thought, maybe I'll. And Tony said, "Why don't you live in my apartment? My apartment is free. Shouldn't you can live in my apartment in Paris?" I was like, "Okay." Yeah. So I just kind of jumped, and I mean, it was a sort of a romantic notion to just like suddenly live in Paris without much forethought. So I just brought a couple of suitcases. I didn't bring my stuff really. It wasn't like I call it a soft move. It was like I didn't take all my belongings and sell my apartment and do all that kind of stuff, you know. And I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed Paris. It is an amazing city. I think it's hard to. I stayed in Tony's place for a little while, but then he was coming back, so I had to find another apartment. And I found a place in Montmartre, which was very cute, but it was difficult to. It's difficult to rent there. It's difficult.
Yeah.
To rent. You know, you need a lot of. I only managed to do it through Facebook, because to try to do it in the normal channels, it's difficult. They want a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you know, musician, you have like no, you know, you don't have like normal financial like paper trails, and so it was a little bit, you know. But I stayed in this apartment for a while. After a while, I thought that Paris was maybe too big, and I thought I wanted somewhere a little more chill.
Yeah.
So I started looking at other places that maybe were not so cosmopolitan, not so.
It's more mellow, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Florence is kind of a nice. I mean, Florence happened. It wasn't that I picked living here. It's just that I got offered to teach and it was at a moment where there seemed to be no stability. This would be 1 year ago. I got asked to do it. And there was no stability of gigs or anything. So I thought, well, I wasn't doing really, I didn't have, even though I was living in Vancouver with my parents, just staying in their basement apartment, and you know, it was nice to be there. Yeah. But in terms of a long range plan, I wasn't really planning on moving back to Vancouver, I don't think. I mean, I thought about it. It's a beautiful place. Yeah. But it's a bit more isolated. Like for me, being in Europe, I have access. It's easier for me to be closer to, you know, I'd say probably at least half of my work in the past was always in Europe. Sure. You know, playing in Europe was the bulk of what I did. So it felt more natural to be close to that world, you know. Plus, I liked it.
You can easily fly.
So I took the, sorry.
Yeah, you can easily fly, you know, right? For even one night gig to, I don't know where, like take EasyJet to Stockholm, play a gig and even go back. And
Yeah. It's easier. It's easier to do one concert.
Yeah.
Where if you're living in New York, to do one concert in Europe is just not so feasible, not so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but I've been enjoying it. It's nice. Florence is beautiful. I mean, it's been mostly a lockdown, and so it was a little bit, you know, it was not an easy winter.
Yeah, sure.
It is coming to life now. It feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Italy is always like, you know, I remember I mean, I'm living like not so far away from you here in Slovenia, right? But so Italy is kind of normal to me, because we've been here so many times there. I mean, like, you know, where you are. And I remember when bringing guys from New York, making tours with them, like, you know, everyone like Matt Brewer and Tony Malaby and Mark Turner and all these guys, when they looked at the schedule, you know, it's like, man, we have 4 gigs in Italy. Everyone is like, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
That's the vibe, you know. Then like, oh, Germany, oh man, okay, or something like that. It's like,
I mean, I honestly, I think there are great things about every country, and and you know, there's a lot of diversity in culture, and so it's fun to travel around Europe.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But you mentioned like the French quartet, Guardians of the Heart Machine, which was, you know, I listened to that one quite a lot, and it's such a beautiful record, and you wrote some amazing tunes, and you know, that Betty in Rio, I love that stuff. Like, man, with the arpeggios and the crazy unisono lines, and it's so cool. And but even your older songs, I mean, I used to teach Vanguard blues, you know, from the call. You still use it actually, like for my students, because it's like blues, but it's a little bit tricky-ish, maybe rhythmically to get it first. But
right, yeah. I haven't written that many blues tunes actually.
Yeah,
not so many. You know, but yeah. I mean, that's a rare tune where I wrote it on the saxophone first.
Really?
And, I often don't write just on the saxophone first, but I remember I had seen Joe Lovano at the Vanguard, and I was inspired, and I was just like,
sure.
Vanguard, what a great club! Like, and the energy and the inspiration of seeing so many gigs there. So I was just inspired from that. But yeah, I just wrote it on the saxophone.
Yeah, how do you usually
Sometimes
write?
with certain types of melodies, it's nice to write it on the saxophone because there are certain things that feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Certain kinds. I mean, sometimes I get blocked by that very aspect of like trying to write on the saxophone because I want to hear something that I haven't played before or haven't played before. So I go back and forth alternating between another instrument and then the saxophone. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to write something that lays really well on the instrument, like it's you know, it's made for the saxophone.
Do sometimes, if you write on saxophone, I've spoken once with Scofield about that, and he said like sometimes he would write a melody which kind of, you know, like he would use it so much that he would write it in a melody so that he wouldn't then use it in solos. So
something he plays a lot, he would put in a melody.
Yeah, just to like, okay,
to remind him not to keep playing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
if he has a tune that goes ba-ba-da-ba-da-da-da, okay, I won't play that anymore.
Yeah,
that's the head.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, but on saxophone, would you do that, or like otherwise you write on piano, right? Probably, I guess. Or
I mean, the piano is a good spot for the chords and things like that, and yeah, I think I think that there are a lot of my melodies. I like to kind of sing them as I play them, you know, to kind of make sure that if I sing it, it feels lyrical to me, you know, and what I sing, I tend to, you know, it's like the most immediate way to get something lyrical out. So, but there are some kinds of melodies which are too difficult to sing, you know.
Yeah.
More instrumental kind of melody, maybe with difficult intervals or something like that. So yeah, I mean, those kind of melodies are almost more soloistic kind of melodies, and but there are sometimes I combine the two. Sometimes I might write the bulk of the song on the piano, but then I want some kind of melody that is coming from the saxophone standpoint, you know.
Yeah.
So I do a bit of both.
Yeah. How do you get inspired to write? I mean, you've written a lot of music, right? I mean, when I check your records.
Yeah, I mean, I think
just improvising.
There's different. I mean, sometimes deciding to do a record.
Yeah.
Gives you the focus and the purpose of like, well, I want to have some music for the recording. I need to come up with music. So you have a kind of a mission, you know, to come up with some music. Although I also, you know, I mean, I go through different phases in what I'm interested in. So sometimes I might not be in a phase of composing, but I might be in a phase of exploring something else, some other aspect. It might be trying to learn about mixing, or it might be music production, or some other aspect. But I do think that I do cherish the value of to me, the most the biggest joy in music comes from writing something that I like, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. It's a never-ending kind of mystery and challenge. And so I think you know, I try to work on it also, even if I don't have a recording planned or something. So I like to write things just, you know, when inspiration strikes. Sometimes it's just, you know, I decide I want to write a tune about something, or I want to write a tune with a certain kind of a feeling, or explore a certain kind of groove or sound or something.
Yeah.
But I also get inspiration from other people's music. You know, I mean, hearing other music inspires me.
Yeah.
So sometimes I study someone else's composition. I study music of somebody else as a kind of as a way to grow myself, and also, and it could be anything from classical music to anything. I mean, it could be rock, classical, Brazilian, electronic, or different. I'm inspired by different kinds of music, so
yeah,
I try to keep keep the openness of it. And sometimes I find that one idea that maybe you get inspired in a certain way by a kind of music that is maybe very different than jazz.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be interesting to find the way to bring that idea into a more of a jazz context.
Yeah.
It might be you know. So I mean, I think that you know, jazz has certain kinds of because it's a mature music. It's been around for a long time, and it's grown a lot, and it has a lot of different branches. If you think of a tree of jazz, there's a lot of different branches of different mixtures.
Yeah.
You know, jazz mixed with rock, jazz mixed with classical music, jazz mixed with hip hop, jazz mixed with, you know, all these different jazz mixed with Latin music, you know, all the different styles and mixtures of jazz, you know. But I think it's you know, there's sometimes you can still find ways to be inspired by another style of music where maybe the emphasis is in a different place.
Yeah.
Like if you think of jazz, a lot of times jazz, the emphasis is on the soloing, and the emphasis might be on fairly complex harmony and rhythm, this kind of thing, you know. And that's cool. And but then maybe if you were, let's say all of a sudden you were listening to a songwriter or something, maybe there's no solo, you know, and the emphasis is not necessarily on the most complex or complicated. So sometimes the different sets of priorities, different kind of attitudes towards music, different values. I think it's interesting to explore that in different kinds of music, and to change your perspective a little bit. I think it's healthy. It kind of I think of it as kind of extending the genetic pool. The you know, in life, you know, you're not supposed to marry your cousin because it's genetically bad.
Yeah.
Because you're lowering your genetic. I'm not explaining it very well, but it's
but I know what you mean. Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not healthy to marry somebody close to your family. You can have the children can have birth defects and that, and that's why we're encouraged in our society. It's just a scientific thing that it's more healthy to. It's probably like having more variety of genetic material in terms of, like, you know, your children, if you're making children. So in that same regard, I think that jazz can stay healthy by having an open-minded, you know, genetic. When jazz, when you just listen to jazz and you only listen to like a certain kind of music from 1950s or whatever, then there's more risk of it becoming kind of
stiff almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, with you, I noticed this, that you don't do that. You know, with Bloom Daddies already, when you know,
Right, yeah.
or whatever project you do, you always seem
But I
to.
also like, sometimes I love to play just straight ahead. And
Yeah,
I
sure.
can enjoy that too. You know, music is music. I think,
Yeah,
I
sure.
just think, I think you want to, as long as you can feel creative and feel free to try things. But I think also the excitement comes from finding new things, you know.
Yeah, I love that too.
Instead of only copying old things. I mean, it can be fun to like learn a tune. Like I still love to like learn tunes and be inspired by, you know, famous historical jazz records. I mean, the history is inspiring. It gives you energy.
Yeah.
You know, and it gives you ideas, and it's the repertoire. You know, jazz is extensive, and there's a lot of great music. So it's fun to check out and to learn from.
Yeah.
You know, but you also want to be creative. So you don't want to be put in a box, stuck.
Definitely. Yeah. Were you like regarding your saxophone sound? Because you know, because when I look at your generation, you know, I'll probably forget someone, but you know, it's you, Mark Turner, Chris Cheek, around kind of the same age, Chris Potter, Tony Malaby. You know, each one of you guys has an incredibly individual sound. You know, you play maybe half a chorus or a couple of bars, and it's like, wow, that's Seamus. Wow, that's Mark. You know, yeah. Like, and I wanted to ask you, like, how did you? You know, because when I was learning, I was obsessed with transcribing. I think I transcribed all your solos from the call, and like,
wow.
I think like 6 albums of Chris Potter solos, you know, or Nat or whatever, especially horn players. But what was your process when learning the lines or learning the language? Did you also transcribe and stuff, or?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny when people ask me about transcription. I think that it's a tool that you can use. And I know some musicians who are great musicians who didn't transcribe at all, and some who transcribed very little. I know some people who transcribed a lot, and they still can't play. So like it's not something that guarantees you being a great musician. I think when I discovered it, it helped teach me how to play.
Yeah.
And for me, I see it as a kind of the way that children learn to speak by imitating the language of their mothers and fathers. So I was imitating the sounds that I was hearing from records. And I think for me, it was a good way. It got me playing quickly. The first solo I did was the Sonny Rollins solo on Polio. And I used to be very confused about, like, I didn't understand how you make jazz lines and what the rhythms are, and it was all very confusing. But I wanted to understand it. So it's kind of like taking a watch apart and you know, like I'm talking about not a digital watch, but maybe like
sure,
you know, reverse engineering things. And I think it was good for me for a while. I learned. It was good for my ears. It was ear training. It was rhythmic, like writing things out. It was like practicing writing melodies out and writing rhythms out. It was practicing memorization. It was practicing critical listening, and it was teaching me about harmony, about rhythm, about phrasing, about sound. I mean, just repetitive listening to something and getting the same sound, you know. So it was good for me. I think, you know, I was obsessed with it for the early years of my development. So from maybe age 16 and a half, something, into college. But at a certain point, I felt actually a little bit blocked by it. Because it was my only technique of growing. And so at a certain point, I felt that I needed to be creative and find other ways to play and practice. So I tried to stop transcription, actually.
So what was the next step like in this learning process for you?
The next step was like trying to assimilate what I know and be creative with it.
Oh yeah, like a make your own dough kind of from all these
Yeah, and
influences.
so I started to, you know, I remember I had a drum machine that it came with one of my Rhodes. I bought a Rhodes piano, and it came with a free drum machine. It wasn't a programmable drum machine. It was just, it had presets. And it had like, you know, 6 presets or something, but the Latin ones were kind of cool. And I would plug it into an amplifier, so it was pretty loud. And I would practice tunes with that. I would sit and play the Rhodes for a while, and then I would practice with the drum machine.
Oh yeah.
And just try to develop ideas. Like I would try to take something that first, you know, like I would try to. I remember one core part of it was trying to sing what I was playing.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember just feeling that I was playing licks too much, and so I wanted to just go. You know, I wanted to, like, you know, listening to people like Keith Jarrett and like people who are very lyrical. But even my heroes were you know, on the saxophone heroes were also lyrical. I mean, Stan Getz, Joe Henderson, Wayne Shorter, Dexter Gordon,
Sonny,
Sonny, Bird, Cannonball. All those people were very lyrical.
Yeah, sure.
So I felt just like I needed to hear what I'm playing and sing it through my instrument. So I just actually would just sometimes just sit there and try to sing a melody, try to play it, try to find it. You know, hearing the chords makes it easier for me to hear what I want to play. So then, and I like the relationship of the melody with the harmony. So I like that. I like them together, the dance that they do together. And so I would sometimes spend some time just playing the piano, trying to make sure that I'm hearing melodies and understanding the harmony and feeling free with the harmonies, exploring different possibilities with the harmony. Then forgetting about that, and then just dealing with rhythm and just playing the tune and getting, you know, trying to open up and hear things on the form. So it would just be a drum beat and myself playing. But I would also try to organize. I would try to have I try to work on one kind of idea for a while. So maybe I would say, oh, I'm just gonna play with this motive, you know, find like something that's stuck, and I would try to play it for a really long time. I think, you know, the motific guys on the saxophone were Sonny Rollins and Joe Henderson, who would take a kind of an idea. You could hear them transposing it and working with it and mutating it and this kind of thing. So doing that kind of stuff without copying the actual licks, you know. Because I think in the worst phase of my addiction to transcription, I felt that I couldn't improve without transcribing another solo, and I felt that I couldn't make my own lines. I felt that I had to depend on somebody else's lines to
bizarre, yeah.
So to break through from that, you know, that I think that was good. And also, I think, you know, I was inspired by some of the students that were at Berkeley at the same time. Kurt Rosenwinkel, you know, Chris Cheek, you know, Mark Turner. I mean, there were a lot of us there, you know, doing playing a lot. I think was also good. Like just having the opportunity to play, and while you're playing, you're trying to be creative, you know. But I noticed that when I started to unlock that trust in my own creativity and trust in finding my own melodies, it was powerful. It had its own power. It had a new kind of power that I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's something, right?
Very frustrated. I was very frustrated with my playing sometimes because it was too emulated and just playing licks that I knew. So I had to figure out, you know. But I think that's a normal path for a lot of people. You know?
Sure.
You know?
But you know, your peers. I mean, I did such a talk with, you know, Liebman and Berganzi and all these amazing guys, you know, and they all explained this camaraderie that was among the saxophone players. You know, Brecker and Grossman and Liebman and Garzone, and I mean, especially the New York guys, Steve Slagle later. Like, how was it with your generation? I mean, was there like a strong bond between saxophone players? I mean, or like especially like in the early 90s in New York, or because I feel, you know, you have a strong connection with Cheek and Turner, but there are so many other players. Like, how do you feel or see this saxophone picture in those years?
I think that there are I would say most saxophone players have a kind of almost unspoken brotherhood with each other or sisterhood.
Yeah.
And I would say that yeah, there, generally speaking, there is a kind of an affinity for each other,
yeah.
and we respect and admire each other and help each other, sometimes play together and practice together and whatnot. There are always some that are not like that, that are more competitive or more, but I would say that's the minority, you know, and most people are especially great players are pretty open, warm people, and they're not so competitive, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I mean, I think saxophone players in general, because of people like Coltrane, you know, there's not such a competitiveness with them. Although, you know, I mean, there can be a healthy competitiveness in playing when you're playing a gig and you're playing with another saxophone player and he just plays something really incredible. Where you're like, oh wow, and it's like, okay, it's no time to be lazy now, no time to like sit back, and it's so that kind of fire, you know, the what they call it, a cutting contest. I mean,
I saw that footage, man.
What's that?
I saw that footage, you and Mike Brecker, and it's like this legendary live, man. And it's like, you know, you play such a killing solo, and it's you and, you know, Mike Brecker, and you're just like, okay, I'll go to this side, like, you know.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. You have to.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I admired and idolized him for you know, for my whole life. So, and he's one of the absolute amazing greats. And so, and he has things that, like, I know that he, you know, a guy like him, he has things that he can do really well that nobody else can do. I mean, there are certain technical things that he can do that are just incredible. And he was very dedicated. I mean, he's, you know, he had the dedication of like Coltrane. You know, I mean, very few people are that dedicated, specifically with a laser focus to what they're trying to do. And he really dedicated himself to playing the saxophone on such a high level. And his cadenza on that recording is incredible. It's you know, it's like he's a master of cadenzas and virtuosity. It's unparalleled, you know. But you know, so yeah, I just try to do my thing, you know, and I know that I can't try to play like him, but I used to, you know, copy his solos and want to try to, you know, I was definitely inspired by him, and you know, I learned some of his licks and wanted to play like him, you know, when I was a teenager. So but at a certain point, I gave up, because I know that I can't. I also, like, I don't want to play somebody else's licks, you know.
Sure, like you said, that it's finding your own voice.
Even playing your own licks sometimes feels a little embarrassing.
Oh man,
repeating that thing again.
I'm so many times on a gig, like you know, you go in like, you know, fuck man, it's like again I'm here, like Jesus.
Well, it's nice to improvise, you know. It's nice to improvise if you can. That's why I love Keith Jarrett. I mean, he has his own sound. But for me, when I was about 19 or 20 or something, he was an inspiration to me. Just hearing him play the standards, and you know, he didn't really play licks. There wasn't like this, like, oh, there's that lick again. I mean, he has a sound, he has a style that's very concrete, and there's repetition in the style and in the way he develops and the way, you know. But it was I was inspired by that. I thought, I want to play like where I'm really improvising. And there's still an excitement, and there's still a virtuosity, and there's a lyrical element, you know, and there's still rhythm, and all the important ingredients are there, but it's not necessarily playing licks.
This melodic development.
And I think that was something that the 90s started to bring around a little bit in jazz. I mean, you know, like a guy like Joe Lovano too was not necessarily a lick player. That's why he kind of like, and he played with a different sound, you know. I mean, on the other hand, like Joe Henderson has his like bag of licks, his own vocabulary, which you know, all the saxophone players have dipped into and copied. I mean, he's amazing. He's one of the sources. It's like Coltrane, Joe Henderson.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of the big important sources. And when I hear Joe Henderson play some of his licks, doesn't bother me at all.
No, yeah, exactly.
Like, so it's a funny thing. It's like it's a personal thing too, you know. I mean, sometimes there's the right place for like something that you played before, but you find a way to sound so good, you know. And so, I mean, I think I mean, in the same way that composing is improvising kind of with a pencil and an eraser, and you're editing it. I think the same way that a solo can be partially composed.
Exactly.
And that you can have things that you've worked on or you've developed. I mean, Coltrane, his essence was preparing a great deal in the practice room and then jumping off the cliff, you know. But, you know, he made his parachutes and he made his vehicles to fly. He prepared a lot.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So that combination of like just jumping off the edge, but also being prepared is intense. So But yeah, Coltrane, you know, a lot of things that he played were rehearsed, if you want, or were formulated beforehand, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that combination. I mean, for me, Michael Brecker sounds amazing when he's playing with people on his caliber and he's relaxed and he's improvising.
Yeah,
that's when it's like, whoa, you know.
Yeah. It's so funny. There's a record. I talked with Bob Minzer, and you know he's a monster as well, right? And they did a record. I think Joachim Kuhn, the piano player, and first Mike had a solo, and Bob was telling me, and like incredibly heavy changes, like kind of giant steppish, even, you know, really heavy, fast up tempo. And you know, Mike has a solo, this like amazing burning solo, and Bob looks at him like, and he has his eyes closed playing, not even looking at the lead sheet. And you know, he said like he was thinking, man, you know, how am I gonna cope with this now? You know, he just blew it like. I mean, like, I can now. Okay, now I have to do something. So he was like you did, you know, like, okay, I'll go there.
Different direction.
Yeah.
One time I saw Wynton Marsalis and like Artur Sandoval playing some kind of trumpet, and I think it was like a line of trumpet players, and it was like a kind of a, you know, and they're all playing. I think John Faddis was there too, and so they each do, you know, John Faddis plays like incredibly high very easily. So he just goes, you know, and plays something super, super high. And then when Wynton comes in, Wynton can play high if he wants to, but he just goes down super low. You know, plays all these like really interesting killer lines down on the very bottom of the trumpet. And so sometimes, you know, you need to like take a even if it's something you can do, having like some kind of stupid like contest of who's stronger. Who's, you know, I mean, those kind of, you know, on saxophone, it's like who can play the fastest.
Exactly. Guitar is the same. Yes.
Yeah, every instrument, there's that kind of like, I mean, I don't, and sometimes like with Instagram, I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing fast, but when it sometimes it can come from the wrong. Sometimes when it comes from a place of ego, then it's more easily put in the wrong musical context, and it can sound forced or like to sound bad.
Yeah.
But you know, if you play fast and you're not, it's not like you're not trying to prove anything to anyone. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
in those moments, I think it makes more musical sense and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, as a musician, you want to be free of that kind of ego, like I'm going to try to impress the people in this room, or I'm going to try to impress the audience with something, because you're probably forcing the situation.
Definitely. Yeah.
You're not just in the moment, and you're not at ease, and you're not just being natural. So
yeah,
I'm more impressed by people who can play less note. I mean, sometimes I listen to myself and I go, oh, I wish I played less note. God. Or, you know, I wish I had improvised more, or I wish, you know, and I'm impressed with people who can play melodically and not play a lot of notes. I mean, that's almost more impressive to me.
You mentioned Lovano. Lovano is, for me, one of those monsters who can do that. Joe Lovano, yeah. I mean, you know, especially with Freeze Out. I mean,
yeah, you can do it all. You can play a lot of notes, and you can play almost nothing, and it sounds great.
Yeah, so
he's totally comfortable in his own skin. He's his own musician, but you can hear the influence. You know, you can hear the Sonny and the Train and the
Coltrane,
you know, and the like Ornette and Dewey and he's very open.
But Seamus, I wanted to ask you, like, you know, talking about playing like long solos and extending it. Like for me, like The Call, which I mentioned before, was your debut as a band leader. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's beautiful songs like Vanguard Blues and On Cue and all. I love those stuff. And what was the moment when you happened? Because you were still fairly in the beginning in New York time. When was the moment that you decided, okay, let's make that record? Because for me, it's like a classic now. It's like 27 years old. Or how was that moment? How did that happen?
It happened pretty naturally. I wasn't. Some of those tunes, The Call. No, not The Call. On Cue, I wrote for a composition class in Berkeley.
Oh, really? Oh,
so it was that tune. Was kind of. I hadn't really written anything before that. Oh, wow. I was focusing on playing, trying to figure out how to play. And so when I took this class and I had to write a song for it, I didn't know what I was capable of necessarily, and I just was trying to write. But when I heard it back I heard it back actually with like 4 horns or 3 horns or something, and I was like, wow, this sounds cool. Like it was inspiring. It was inspiring to me that I could manage to write something that I liked.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think for me that made me want to continue to write. So even though I didn't have to write any. Even though the class ended, I remember, you know, continuing to try to write tunes. So, you know, some of those tunes, The Call, that like kind of minor bluesy thing, I just wrote on a Rhodes piano. I didn't, the Rhodes was kind of cool because 2-note voicing sounded very full.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, sure.
So it inspired me in a different way. But I tried to write some tunes. I think I wrote Vanguard Blues just after hearing Joe at the Vanguard one time, and just being inspired by the energy of that club and the gig that I heard. But I wasn't really thinking about a record. So, and then I got asked to play on a record of Billy Drummond's.
Oh yeah,
called Gift.
Yeah.
And I was asked to play on that record, and then so. That wasn't my first record in New York, but my first record was with Victor.
This Ice, right?
Know It Today, Know It Today, Know It Tomorrow.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
That was my first record. That was early. I was still in college, so it was maybe 91 or 92.
Wow.
91.
Oh, okay.
I was still in college because I met Victor at a workshop in Sandpoint, Idaho. So when I was asked to do Billy Drummond's record, it was Crisscross, and then somehow I was talking to Jerry Teekins from Crisscross, and he asked me, did I have any music? like, so I had like a little demo tape of some things that I had recorded at Berkeley, just some, you know, there was a studio there, and I remember we recorded some things. So I sent that, and he liked it. So I think, did I have to write any more music for that? Maybe I wrote one, but I already basically had the music.
Had the material, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I think it's good to like always kind of keep writing, because you know, it's, you know, because sometimes it's good to have a certain amount of pressure, like to kind of get some music together, and that can be good. But at the same time, you don't want to always write music under pressure. Sometimes you want to explore freely, and you want to take your time with it. Some songs happen really quickly, and some songs take me forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like, you know, sometimes I spend a long time working on something, and it takes a long time to be ready. And sometimes it happens just in one day. So it's hard to. That's why I think, you know, you have to cultivate the inspiration, and you have to have situations where you know, if like having a recording or having a gig where you're like you're under pressure to supply music. You have a responsibility to present the music, and so that's important. That gives you focus, but also, you know, to remember your responsibility is not just one record. It's you know, so just to kind of keep writing, you know, and sometimes I forget about writing, or I go off these tangents of exploring something else, or you know, I mean, I love music, and I don't get tired of music. It's such a infinite universe that it's if I get tired of it, it means that I just have to change my perspective, or maybe listen to something else, or go hear something, but you know, or not, or take a vacation
break.
But I think you know, it's you know, it's good to keep, you know, to have some tunes that you just write. I mean, I have kind of a surplus of material and some things that I haven't necessarily recorded, and I'm just trying to find the right situation and the right, you know, setting for it. So but yeah, you know, I think it's sometimes having the pressure of the album can force you to come up with some good things quickly, where you might have been like, well, if you don't have the pressure of the recording or the gig, you might think, well, it's okay, I'll take it easy. But with the pressure of the gig, you're like, I gotta finish this, you know. And so that's good. I mean, a little bit of pressure is good. You know? It forces you to get things done, to finish.
Yeah.
You know, that can be a big thing when you don't have so much going on. Sometimes I have a lot of like not quite finished things. You know? The idea is very strong. It's a completed idea. And the song is there, but it's not quite finished. Like I still have to work out certain aspects of it, and it's painstaking. You know, you have to. Sometimes the fun part is like exploring the tune, having a lot of fun, and then you get to this point, and then you're like get a little bit stuck, and then you're like, I'm not really sure like what to do now. And okay, I'll just take a break.
Yeah. And I mean, the call, especially like with the tunes, it's so cool because I guess you guys probably play them because it's kind of your peers, right?
Yeah, we had played a couple of gigs. I mean, I remember doing a couple of gigs in New York, just like at Visionis or some of these little clubs beforehand. But I hadn't played the music a lot.
Yeah,
I played it a little bit, but not a lot. It's nice to be able to play it a little bit. I think it can help give the music a little bit extra confidence or familiarity. People are not reading so much, but it depends on what the music is. If the music is hard, I mean, I've tried different scenarios with that.
Sure.
And I think it does. I think it does help sometimes. Sometimes you don't have the luxury. Sometimes you have to just do the first ever take in the studio. But sometimes it can be nice to have some music where you're just the band has played it before. It feels really easy, like bam.
You know? Especially, I mean, with Bill. Did you play with Bill before? Because you and Bill, I know you did Telepathy, and which I love Bill's record, but you and Bill seem to have.
with Scofield. Like when I played with Scofield in '96.
Wait a second. It was you played with Sco in Iridium, right? In '96. Was that the gig?
So in Iridium, that was 2000.
Oh yeah, I saw you guys then with Sco.
Oh
Yeah,
wow!
I remember that. I saw
So
you.
the first tour, he had done. I just actually was when I was in Ancona. I saw this photographer, the same photographer that showed me all these pictures of Victor Lewis. He had basically all the gigs in Ancona that I had ever done. And
Wow.
so he showed me these photos of me with Scofield because we played there.
Man.
So yeah, that was wild to see all these photos. It was a huge book of photos from one concert, you know. And but yeah, that's when I first started. I mean, I met Bill actually through Kevin Hayes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Kevin knew Bill. I'm not sure how they met, how Kevin and Bill met, but I kind of met Bill through Kevin first, and I started to do some sessions at Kevin's house in Brooklyn. We would just play, go meet, play some tunes, just play, and then, but then I got to know him better being on the road with him.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
at first I was kind of nervous around him because he's a star. I mean, I remember seeing, you know, Scofield's quartet with Bill and Ravano, the Ravano Bar when I was in college, you know, maybe '92 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, just blew me away. It was like such a good gig, you know. So yeah, I mean, but getting to play with them, you know, we did, I don't know how many months of touring in '96 we did, maybe like 4 months of touring or something like that, you know, so quite a lot. Like maybe less, I'm not sure. I actually don't remember now. Definitely like, you know, that we were his touring band at that time. He made that record Quiet.
Yeah.
And it was with, you know, Wayne was playing on the record. Of course, Wayne is not going to tour. I mean, Wayne wasn't available for the touring. Not of course, but
no,
but
I
mean,
know what you
he
mean.
wasn't available for the touring. And so so he had to put together a touring band for that, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think playing with somebody on a regular basis makes it more comfortable to record with them and stuff like that.
How was the Scofield experience for you? I mean, like,
it was amazing. Yeah.
How did you guys hook up? I mean, he just called you for that tour or the project?
Scofield was on Blue Note in those days.
Yeah.
In the '90s, and I did a record with Kevin Hayes. Kevin did a couple of Blue Notes, and Scofield was hired to produce the record. So he was just sitting in the control room, like, "Guys, sounds beautiful. Try another take," you know.
Yeah.
And so so I guess he heard me or met me then, and then I think somehow he had heard my record too, because maybe Bill had told him about it, or somehow he had heard the record that I did. And so I think the combination of maybe playing on Kevin's record and then maybe him hearing, because he kind of took the same people in my band. He I mean, it was Larry.
Oh yeah, Bill. And Bill. Yeah, exactly.
And Kevin.
Yeah. And
so that was the same people that were on my band. So he stole my band, and it became his band. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was an amazing experience because I mean, I can't think of another time where I was really with somebody I idolized so much, and who's such a great songwriter, and has made so much amazing music, and I had seen so many gigs and listened to all his records and just loved his music. So to play with him and be on the road with him was amazing. And at first I was nervous because, I mean, Joe Lovano is so great and could do so many things that I couldn't do, that I just felt like I couldn't quite fill the shoes of like, you know, somebody like that. But I just tried to forget about it and just be myself, and it was a great experience. I mean, I think Sco was he was like my jazz dad.
Yeah.
Like he was, you know, he had moments where he would be like, no, but in general, he was very open and very free.
As a band leader, yeah.
Like, I mean, he was you know, he had a line that you couldn't cross. Like I remember one time, you know, I was late for the lobby call. It was 15 minutes late, and he said, you know, we all can use an extra 15 minutes of sleep. Can you try to be on time? I was like, I'm so sorry. You know?
Oh yeah, shit, yeah, sure. But
you know,
yeah,
things like that. I remember, you know, at the time, I remember when we did the first rehearsal, I wasn't really sure what the music was like, and I was really into my pedals because of the Bloom Daddies.
oh yeah,
so
shit, yeah.
you know, I showed up to the first rehearsal with like an arsenal of pedals, you know. But the music he was doing was more
Yeah,
it was more like it was more acoustic jazz. So he's like, I think you can just leave the pedals at home, you know. Okay, yeah, of course. Even though I was kind of into it, you know.
yeah, beautiful.
It was a great experience. I mean, his songs are great, and
Yeah,
they're kind of like standards. I mean, he writes.
yeah,
It's always melodic and fun to play. The solo, the forms are make sense, and it's so it's a great lesson on just how to be a band leader and how to write good music. And I mean, he's very prolific,
yeah,
and
sure.
he was a super nice guy, and you know, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
You know, I remember I mean, it's always hard to be like present in the present
yeah.
moment and enjoy and appreciate everything fully when you're there.
I know what you mean.
And I
Yeah.
think one thing that I remember is that at the time I was kind of wanting to do like more Bloom Daddies, more funk, and more of that like rock funk stuff, and I kind of wanted to do that. So at the time I was like, I don't really want to play acoustic jazz right now. I was feeling that a little bit, you know. But at the same time, I knew that it was like amazing, you know,
Yeah,
it's an amazing
good
band.
gig. Yeah.
So I tried to, you know, appreciate it for what it was.
Yeah.
And, it was great. It was amazing.
How did this experience with Sko and let's say Victor Lewis or all these guys you played with as a sideman, as a side person, influence your band leading? Like, how would you describe yourself as a band leader? I mean, like, are you also strict in this sense, or like, or are you more loose? Or
yeah, I mean, I think what, in my opinion, what works best is that you call the right musicians and
yeah,
tell them as little as possible.
yeah,
So that they feel free and creative. But sometimes people go, even great musicians make a wrong choice that maybe as the composer, maybe you don't hear it that way.
yeah,
so it's a delicate balance, I think. And you know, Victor, you know, one thing that I learned from Victor is he never really said anything. And he didn't even like to rehearse.
oh yeah.
And when he did rehearse, he would tell a story sometimes about what the song was about, you know.
Oh, that helps.
So they were always very cinematic, you know. With Scofield, you know, he didn't say much either. I mean, he really didn't like try to tell you too much. Granted, you know, the music is like pretty playable right away. It's not like really hard, like crazy music with
those quiet tunes, yeah, especially, yeah.
You know, and crazy orchestration and more chance for things to go wrong, you know, the music. But when something wasn't exactly right, he would let you know. I mean, he had a way. He was not a pushover. But we all cared tremendously. I mean, that's the thing. If you call the right musicians, first of all, their musicianship is going to know what to do to make it sound good, and then second of all, you know, they, you know, they're going to know what to play. But if they don't know what to play, they're going to be open to trying something else. You know. I think, I mean, there are some band leaders, I won't say any names, but there are some band leaders who are kind of like little dictators. And for some reason, they have this need to find someone in the band, often the drummer, to find someone in the band to just kind of pick on. And just like always like, no, that's not right, and do this and change this and blah, 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 you know. And I think sometimes those situations are not musical but psychological.
Sure.
but me myself, sometimes I do get kind of like picky about the way something sounds. Sometimes also you need to just let it have a little time to find it.
Yeah.
You know, it takes time for people to find something. I know myself, like I improve over time. I need to practice something to be able to get to play it right. And sometimes it's like the mood. Sometimes you can call the wrong musician for the type of music you're doing. So if you're, if you're, to call a straight ahead drummer for a bunch of odd time signature, music
Sure.
that doesn't make sense either. I've been in situations where people do that and then they are frustrated that the music doesn't sound right. And it's like, well, you called the wrong, drummer, or you're playing the wrong music for this drummer.
Like that, yeah, definitely, yeah.
So
Amazing. Yeah, so Seamus, just one more question. Speaking of,
sure.
Not to take too much of your time, but like, you established like a really nice, I think, relationship with Gonzalo also. Speaking of heavy music, and he played that on Superconductor also on yours then, kind of, but I think you first did the suite of his, right?
Yeah, Caminos, yeah.
And how was that like? How did the story with Gonzalo happen and playing his stuff? I mean, that's like really some of the heaviest. I spoken with Clarence Penn, and Clarence told me like he did some gigs with Gonzalo because I don't know, someone couldn't make it, and he didn't get the sheet music, and it was just on the before the gig, like okay, and Gonzalo was just like 1 2 1 2 3 4, like like how was your experience like with him? How did it happen?
I mean, he's a really incredible musician, and he writes some very challenging music.
Yeah.
He's he's just at the highest level possible of piano.
Yeah.
So of playing, and I think his world is like a kind of a synthesis of like sort of like Cuban, his folkloric natural music, but the rhythms of Cuba, which is it's sometimes he does a kind of a fusion of that, and so sometimes I think what was difficult when playing his music, and some of it we practiced it a lot. I remember we had 4 days of rehearsals, and
really?
and I practiced it on my own with tapes, and it wasn't so technically hard, but it was rhythmically very hard.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of independence of parts. So sometimes you're on your own, and sometimes there's a lot of crazy things happening at the same time. So it's very tricky. It was really tricky. It was some of the hardest music I played, and it wasn't hard from a bunch of notes. Like it would be much easier to play a whole bunch of crazy arpeggios in 4/4 than to play some of the rhythms, because it was like a lot of like kind of fast multiples of like 3/8, 5/8, 7/8, 9/8, and changing bar lines, and then the bass is not playing one, it's like on some other offbeat, and like without a click, it's hard.
Yeah, sure.
Without a click, it's very hard.
Yeah.
With a click, it's not so bad, and with a click, playing on your own is doable. But it's when you put all the other parts in there and you take the click out, it's like, man, you lose one.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd say it's mostly rhythmically tricky. So Gonzalo has an incredible sense of rhythm, and of course harmony and touch and piano and that, but his rhythm is really amazing. He's very just super strong with that, and it was amazing to hear him play some of my music. He is incredible. His solo on Gracia is really amazing.
Yeah.
And at first, when I heard it, I was like, because I had in my attachment that this was like a very lyrical song. So when sometimes his song, his solo gets kind of tonal and a bit aggressive,
yeah.
But now I think it's perfect. But at the time I was like, well, maybe it's like a little bit atonal or a little bit aggressive or something. I'm not sure. But now when I listen to it, I'm like, wow, it's incredible. He gets to this one point and he builds, and then it's like he kind of opens up, and it almost goes free.
Yeah,
he has that really strong sense of time and strong rhythm that he can be free over it and then come right back to it and not drop a beat. You know?
Yeah.
And that's really very powerful.
Did you guys ever play gigs together, or was that just recordings?
No.
Oh,
I mean, we didn't.
It would be fun to hear you guys live.
Yeah.
Would
But I mean, his music is challenging. I would need to practice for like a solid year.
Oh, come on, yeah.
Just to figure out to keep my footing. But yeah, he is a great musician. I was very fortunate to make that record.
Yeah, beautiful. Cool, man. Cool, Seamus.
Well,
I will not take much of your time. So thanks so much for sharing all these stories.
So much. Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful to hear.
All right.
So, cool, man. I'll let you know.
Dr. Jazz.